All right, today we are tackling a really big topic, diabetic ketoacidosis, or DKA for short. Now, I know that sounds super intimidating, but we're going to break it all down. What it is, why it happens, and exactly how doctors turn things around. Let's jump right in. You know, everything we're about to talk about really boils down to this one simple but absolutely critical question. Our bodies are amazing, right? But when you take away their number one fuel source, they have to switch to a backup plan. And that backup plan can get really dangerous really fast. So before we can understand what goes wrong in DKA, we've got to get a handle on how things are supposed to work. And it all starts with sugar, glucose, and a very special hormone that works just like a key. Okay, picture this. Every single cell in your body is like a tiny little house that needs fuel to keep the lights on. That fuel is sugar, but the front door to every one of those houses is locked. Insulin. Insulin is the one and only key that can unlock the door and let the sugar inside. Pretty simple, right? Well, what happens if you lose the key? And that right there is the fundamental problem in type 1 diabetes, and it's what sets the stage for DKA. There is just no insulin. The key is gone. So all of that sugar you eat just gets trapped, piling up in the bloodstream with nowhere to go. The doors to the cells stay locked shut. This quote just nails it perfectly. You have this bizarre, dangerous situation where the blood is swimming with sugar, a sea of plenty, but the body's own cells can't touch any of it. They are literally starving to death, and they start sending out these desperate, frantic alarm signals. And this is where the DKA crisis truly begins. The body hears those starvation alarms, and it panics. It flips an emergency switch, activating this very primitive survival mode. It starts burning a completely different type of fuel, and that is where the real trouble begins. It's like a devastating chain reaction. So, step 1, no insulin means the cells are starving. Step 2, the body thinks, I need fuel now, and starts breaking down fat like there's no tomorrow. But here's the catch. Step 3, the byproduct of all that frantic fat burning is a flood of acidic molecules called ketones. And finally, step 4, the body simply can't get rid of these ketones fast enough. They build up, and the blood's pH plummets, turning it dangerously acidic. And that's where the name comes from, keto for ketones, and acidosis for acid. Now, a crisis this huge doesn't happen quietly. The body starts sounding some very loud, very clear alarm bells that something is going terribly wrong. So what should you be looking for? What's so interesting is that these symptoms are actually the body's own desperate attempts to save itself. That incredible thirst and constant peeing, that's the kidneys working overtime trying to flush out all that extra sugar. That distinct fruity smell in the breath, that's literally the body trying to breathe out the acid as ketones. And that deep, fast breathing, that's the lungs trying to blow off as much carbon dioxide as possible to fight the acid building up in the blood. It's a system in full-blown panic mode. And let's be crystal clear, this is a life-threatening, full-blown medical emergency. It demands immediate action in a hospital. The body is caught in a downward spiral, and it needs a fast, coordinated rescue plan. So what does that look like? Well, in the ER, doctors launch a methodical, three-pronged attack. They have to hit the three biggest problems all at once: the massive dehydration, the sky-high blood sugar, and that dangerous acid in the blood. To really get a sense of the first problem, just look at this number, 6 liters. That's how much fluids someone in DKA can lose. It's an absolutely catastrophic level of dehydration that can cause your blood pressure to crash and send the body into shock. So, job number 1 is always fluids. So here's the game plan. First, they hit you with huge amounts of IV fluids to rehydrate the body and get that blood pressure back up. Second, they start a continuous IV drip of insulin. This is it. This is the missing key. It immediately tells the body to stop burning fat, which stops the ketone production, and it finally lets the cells use all that sugar in the blood. And third, and this is so important, they carefully manage your electrolytes, especially potassium. The whole crisis throws them way out of whack, and getting them back in balance is crucial for protecting the heart. So once the patient is stable and the crisis is over, the conversation changes. Now it's all about figuring out why it happened in the first place and, of course, how to make sure it never happens again. It also helps to put DKA into the bigger picture of diabetic emergencies. Yeah, people often mix up DKA with another condition called HHS. The key difference? DKA is classic for type 1 diabetes, and its defining features are the ketones and the acid.
HHS, on the other hand, is more common in type 2. With HHS, there's just enough insulin hanging around to stop the body from burning fat, so you don't get the ketones or the acid. But what you do get is insanely high blood sugar. We're talking astronomical levels, which leads to its own form of extreme dehydration.
So what kicks this whole thing off? It's really important to know that DKA almost never happens out of the blue. There's usually a trigger. The number one cause, by far, is some kind of illness or infection, like the flu or pneumonia. The stress of being sick just makes the body need way more insulin. Other big triggers are missed insulin doses, major events like surgery. Or sometimes, DKA is actually the very first sign that lets someone know they have type 1 diabetes to begin with. And that kind of brings us full circle. This entire terrifying chain of events, the starving cells, the out-of-control fat burning, the blood turning to acid, all of it kicks off because one tiny single key is missing. It's just such a powerful reminder of how a seemingly small problem on a microscopic level can cascade into a massive, life-threatening crisis. And it really, truly shines a light on why the daily, diligent work of managing diabetes is so incredibly important.